And without any further waste, let's get right to our first guest who's in the queue here. We don't want to keep him waiting. He's very busy. He's got a lot going on. He's a good friend of ours. He's been a advocate for I know him as an advocate for the reform of cannabis in general, and he also works at the powerhouse law firm with Jesse Williams and our friend Fred. What was his last name? I forget. Last week, Fred. He'll tell us.
What's Fred's last name?
The lawyer. Wait a minute. We'll get. Wait a minute. But Eric, of course, is
Stig Nielsen.
Fred Stig Nielsen. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
He was great.
Yes,
we had a whole thing with these guys were tearing up the chondrin on his. I
was trapped in my
lying as that continues to unfold. But anyways, without further ado, Eric VanDussen's here. He's a videographer and freelancer and Benzie, and is a good friend of ours. He's been on our show before, and I want to welcome Eric VanDussen, please. Eric, how you doing? Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Excellent. This technology is working.
I made it into your bunker.
That's awesome. So we probably could come up with 95 different topics to talk about, but you know, we're in the news, a good way. And you'd sent me the story, and I was fascinated by it. I'm glad you showed up to discuss this. And this is involving the recent federal indictments for the domestic terrorists, the allegations in those cases. We talked about this a little bit last week. We talked about some of the things in the indictment. But Eric, you for reasons I want you to explain. Tell us how you got dragged into this news cycle, and what involvement. Involvement, I don't mean that, but how do you find yourself on the periphery of in the news relative to this story?
Well, initially, I had a lot of time on my hands, dealing with some medical issues, so I was pretty bedridden and stuck in my house like a lot of other people. So when a lot of these protests that were basically had manned security from various militia groups that stood up next to the speakers on the steps of the Capitol building, specifically like on April 15th and the 30th, I believe. And then they had other rallies in Grand Rapids, I believe, in June. But I took an interest in it because I had a lot of time on my hand, and I started watching all kinds of videos, and actually I started going onto the Facebook pages of different militia members that were quoted in media. Initially, it was an individual by the name of Phil Robinson, who is the leader of the Michigan Liberty Militia.
By the way, when you started, this is something they call Into the Rabbit Hole, if I may, right? This is what's going on. But I just wanted to kind of put some context on it. Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm digging into the rabbit hole, and Phil Robinson is kind of the head of security, and for these events is what his claim was. Supposedly, the Michigan Liberty Militia was requested to serve as security for these events while carrying their semi-automatic rifles and dressed in SWAT gear, is how they all showed up, to stand next to the speakers during these events, specifically on April 15th and the 30th. There's a lot of video out there on YouTube and other places of these events. But on the 30th of April, that's when shit really started to hit the fan with, hundreds of people inside the Capitol building, several armed with semi-automatic rifles, screaming and hollering and trying to push their way onto the House floor or the Senate floor, depending on, what was going on in either house. And security was had their hands full. And when I was on one of these, Phil Robinson's Facebook page, I was watching a live stream video from one of his compadres, who's now been identified as William Null, one of the individuals that was arrested and is now housed in the Antrim County Jail. his live stream video, this William Null, was on Phil Robinson's Facebook page. It was shared on there. So I started watching it and immediately became scared of, I was in fear for people down on the floor watching his vantage point with his camera as he was spanning, across what was below him from the balcony, as he held a semi-automatic rifle, and the security guards there and the police officers are armed with pistols down on the floor. And there was multiple individuals up on the balcony with him with semi-automatic rifles and dressed in basically SWAT gear and making statements that were very concerning to me.
Eric, let me clear something. Is this so now you're talking about as you're exploring this with the time you have on your side, you begin to you're exploring the people that were named in the articles, the Facebook pages, the things that they say, and you're watching now a video as they reported in here, and you're watching this guy Null in the video. If I'm not, are you talking about while they're at the Capitol?
Yes.
Okay.
So William Null is at the event on April 30th, and he was supposedly with this Phil Robinson individual, basically serving with his other Michigan Liberty Militia members as security for an individual named, I think, Ryan Kelly, who was doing all these patriot rallies at the Capitol and in Grand Rapids and other places, protesting the government or the Governor Whitmer's orders, COVID orders, with guns. They felt they needed to do that with semi-automatic rifles for some reason.